Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As we approach Labor Day weekend here in the United States of America, welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Coexistence and Sustainability. And our topic is Harmony in Habitats. And if you've joined us before, you know this program is chock full of education. So take a seat and relax, because we're bringing out the star of our show, who is an expert in these areas, plus many more. It's Pet Psychic AMINAH. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully it's sunny and warm where you are. It is where we are.
It looks magnificent. I haven't been out for days, but I'm surrounded by beauty. So it is a beautiful day outside, and it's really exciting and important to get out with nature, which I'm going to be doing. So Pet Psychic AMINAH, we've talked about this before, but I always think it's important because people are joining us, new people everywhere. You have extensive experience in communicating with animals, also with public speaking, also with training animals, and you're very passionate about people waking up and taking responsibility and being accountable for their own behavior so that we can preserve this planet for generations to come. Tell us about why these things are so important to who you are, the core of you as a person.
I think that's a complicated answer for probably all of us. It would be asking me what's it like to be a woman, what's it like to be white, what's it like, because I've actually been asked these questions and I'm like, I don't know the answer to that because I haven't been anything else. I'm very, very, very fortunate to be with a family that my mother saw what each of her children, there were 5 of us, that what we each were passionate about, what we each leaned towards. Now, my dad was a coach, and he specialized in many fields of sports, but he was known in his later years, his last 25 years of his life, as a pro tennis player, and of course taught that in the high school that he worked in. So I was outside all the time. My mother thought cooperating in the house was go weed her garden. So I did a lot of weeding. So I'm very, very used to getting my hands dirty, whatever that means. But in this fabulous family, my mom saw that I was very, very passionate about all animals. I was the one who picked up the spider. I was the one who, wanted to go and talk to the cricket. I was the first one to go and pet the neighbor's dog, through the fence or not. Luckily, I only got bit a couple times, because that's not a safe way to introduce yourself in a lot of places. With all of this, I've added a college education. I've also worked in a wildlife sanctuary for a very long time, and these animals came to the sanctuary understanding that they had become, half of them had become Hollywood stars. I was in Southern California where this sanctuary was. And I don't know about the bears and the lions, but I don't think they wanted to be Hollywood stars. So what do you do with these animals? Well, you put them in a sanctuary. And we tried very, very hard to create a very active living, even though they were in cages. With all of this, what my point is, I have put my passion into education, into learning more, and every single week, all my clients and all my friends, and Dr. Jacalyn, even you, we've talked about your puppies. And I learned so much from pet owners. So what we're hoping to share with you every Friday on my channel is a new way to think. I am pretty famous in my circle of MacGyvering things. If you're old enough to understand that term, I want to think outside the box. It shouldn't cost you a fortune, but animals do cost money. You do have a vet bill eventually, or you do have spay and neutering if they're not already. You do have food and grooming, and God forbid somebody gets sick. So these are really important things to talk about. And in that is the harmony of the relationship, is the coexistence of all of us. I'm still trying to figure out what the mosquitoes' plan is and why we have them. If somebody knows, I keep putting it out there. Just give me an email or a call and let me know what the big plan is with mosquitoes. But everybody, human, animal, vegetable, mineral, bug, or otherwise, they have a vital part of the ecosystem. When we kill one, when we use chemicals like Roundup, and I was a big fan of that, getting rid of the weeds, until I looked into it, until I read the research. So what I'm offering here is maybe you'll do better quicker, more quickly than I was able to. It just, a lot of the science wasn't there. A lot of the marketing was, so it was easy, it was fast. Right now I'm having that same struggle. They planted the place where I live that has a garden company that comes out and does common area, what do I want to say, growing spaces, bushes and trees and things to maintain. In one section, there is 4 dogs living in 4 different houses, and they all have said, either to me personally or I've seen it, they're all urinating or defecating in and around this one planter, which is the size of a dinner table or a dining room table. It's a good space, especially for a dog. It doesn't need much. But it has teeny tiny, thinner than your nail, burrs in the plant that is right along the sidewalk. I was sharing the information with one of the pet owners. It came up organically, and I said, you know, I really hope you're not letting your dog come over here and use this planter, because the plant is highly dangerous. You will never see that sliver that gets up under the skin, will get buried in, just like a fox glove does, just like those fox stars, they will burr in. They even can give a pet and or a person a heart attack, because it can go that far into the body. This is what we're going to talk about on this channel. This is what we're going to cover. And I love hearing your questions. I love it when everybody sends me questions. Hey, can you cover this on the show? And I'll check in. That'd be great. We'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, AMINAH. One thing I was thinking about when it comes to the animal kingdom is how each species has their own unique way of defending itself or protecting itself. Like this skunk, I was walking down the street and I smelled this skunk smell. And I was like, okay, that's the skunk defending itself. If you think about a blowfish, how it goes up with the spikes.
Yep.
It's quite interesting, isn't it?
It is. And what's fascinating for people like me who are finding everything, including, I'm still waiting for anybody to call me and tell me what the point of a mosquito is. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for that answer. But every species, animal, vegetable, mineral, carnivore, herbivore, whatever their diet, whatever that is, what I see in the makeup of any part of the world and any part of our ecosystem is coexistence in balance. So one animal will eat meat, one animal will keep the plants trim, one animal will have their young on the ground, some will be in the trees, some will be in the bark of a tree, some will create their own den. it's all about all of them doing something completely different. What people do is we all erect houses of some sort. We all take the water source and pull it directly into our home. We are not as available to share our resources with the neighbor next door, the neighbor next door, the neighbor next door. What I challenge everybody to do, and I know for me it's the same thing, is how can I make sure that I am coexisting not only with nature, but I'm coexisting with my neighbor? And first and foremost, we can control the trash. It does blow out. We all have trash cans. We put them out. The trash company comes, they dumped it. Once in a while, papers are flying everywhere. What I find really saddening for me is I get called out on many walks with different people, and they're like, "You're not going to pick up that trash, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. It blew away from somewhere. It's just going to go and create a backlog. Maybe it'll biodegrade, maybe it won't. If it's plastic or aluminum, it's not going to. And even if it's newspaper, it's going to take a long time." This is how we can come in and co-create. I can carry a bag and pick up trash if I want. I just stuff it in my pocket if I need to, if it's that small. I've picked up gum wrappers and all types of things, and then just throw them away when I get home. These things are easy to do, and it could save a life, because animals don't know what a gum wrapper is. They don't know what gum is. They might try it, and then, can you imagine, get their mouths stuck together because they have no idea what they just swallowed? And from what I understand, gum sticks in your gut a very long time. So just some more tips on being conscious and conscientious about what we're doing and how we're doing things. We really, really need to be recycling better. From what I heard and what I've just started reading, and I got a lot of articles to go, is so much of the plastic we are recycling is still not getting anywhere far enough off the landfills. The companies that are taking these plastic jugs aren't always able or can. I haven't figured out what the gap is, that they're not being able to follow through and actually recycle, like a bleach bottle or anything else that comes in a bottle. So these are so many things we still have to learn.
It's always good to have more to learn, right?
Absolutely. It keeps you on top of your toes.
It sure does. You know, we had somebody on earlier, a show right before this, and she was talking about how she's the trustee of a dog rescue. We're hearing more and more about people getting involved with rescuing animals. And I think that's a great way for coexistence. You had talked about that before you purchase a pet, that it's a good idea to go and but what if you are interested in having another kind of pet? Maybe it's a rabbit or a lizard or something. Do they have shelters where they have that kind of ability to volunteer?
Yeah.
Or they do?
Yeah, they do. What I also suggest is there is a program that's United States wide. It's called 4-H. There's also now Brownies and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, they don't lean towards the animal field, as 4-H was hatched, born, started when they found that farmers were having, their children were starting to go to college and going to different schools, and they weren't any longer, once we got, I think it was about the 1950s, where you really saw that you didn't have the children of the farmers staying on the farm and creating food, materials, wood, trees, whatever. They were going to college, they were choosing other paths. So now 4-H is very old. I don't even remember. We should be way over 75 years at this point. And they teach everything from sewing to cooking to farming, and just depends on the club and where you are. So if you are able to look up 4-H, and it's usually 4-H, but either any way you Google it, you can see if there is a program in your county, in your city, but they're usually by county. And what's wonderful is when the adults get involved, for example, if you know how to sew, that's great. You can offer a sewing for beginners or sewing for advanced or in everything in between. This is where I know my siblings and I, we learned to cook. We learned to sew. We learned to publicly speak. Lots of speaking competitions. And it is based on the university system. It is supported by the UC system. That's how it got started. And it was in the days when people were still farming, but so many kids it was already coming down where farmers had less time, and it's a great way to network. But I really miss is, you don't even have these classes where you used to have a sewing typing class in high school. I learned to type in middle school. That was a class that I was offered. So I thought, well, that might be important to know. And I was able to go and get a job because I already knew how to type. I already knew what I was going to be doing. So it is up to us to all step in and say, I would really like to see this program. Of course, look around, see if it already exists. But when you find that it already exists or it hasn't in a long time and or never, how about you being the one that starts it or gets it going, or you and your neighbors get together and decide, hey, I really love to cook. I'd love to show the kids in the neighborhood how to cook. And hey, maybe I'm really good at building bookshelves or something by hand. I love it when the dads and the moms are involved. All of this can and will move our youth forward in a positive, contributing to not only their life, but others. And can you imagine having a resume when you get started and say, hey, I already know this, 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 this. Maybe one of your parents speaks a foreign language. Great. Learn at least the basics and or whatever's appropriate for your family, especially if you have a grandmother, mother that speaks another language. Can you imagine having that on your resume? Any language today. When I was growing up, of course, I grew up in California, it was Spanish. It was any of those languages. I didn't know any of those. I took German. I don't know why, but I did. And you can turn these wonderful programs into successes on your resume. You really can. And if all else, you get to really understand how a tree grows, how a plant grows, what kind of soil they need, what do dogs need, what do cats need. And it didn't cost you much. And hopefully you met a lot of new friends.
Yeah, I'm smiling back here because I remember when I was in school taking typing, how many words in it, home ec, and then I took French, German, and Spanish. And I still remember those little skits that they had us practice. But I don't recall, maybe you recall this, I don't recall ever having some kind of class where we got to interact with animals.
No, in the public school, what is really great, I have been able to, and some of my co-animal people have been able to bring in one animal at a time. It depends on the teacher. I don't know what's going on now. All of my relatives and friends that were teachers have retired. So I don't have a pulse on what's going on in the schools locally. And of course, my kids are all grown. But what's really neat is you really saw that there would be a classroom pet, especially for 6th grade and under. You really saw teachers getting involved with having a class frog or a parrot, or they'd have butterflies. They would actually put out, the food, go through the process of having the chrysalis stage. And if you don't know what that is, when the butterfly is all in their little cocoon, and that's the chrysalis stage before they come out and they were released. So a lot is, and even more so, sadly, is lack of parents being involved. Most of them are working now. To live in this society, most parents are both working. I was really, really fortunate I let my husband know pretty quick. I said, when we decide to have kids, I'm going to be home. I'm going to be with them. That is a short time in their life, and I really wanted to do that. I really appreciate my mom doing it, but it was much, much more common when my mother did it. I put those wheels in motion from the time I said I do. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I don't mind working. I don't mind finishing my degree, all of that. But there's going to be a gap because I do want to be there when the kids, not everybody can do that. It's very expensive to raise children, have a house, all of those things. But when you try to plan, I think that's probably the best way to just kind of say, hey, let's do what we can, as opposed to, you know, having your kids not have these experiences. Get them in where you can. If there's not a club or organization in your area, I can't tell you how many times I've seen families do that, put a program together. I was really fortunate at one of my jobs to be the education director. And so I brought in a beekeeper, and I think we did it twice a month. He put hives out on the property. It was a part of a museum, so they were on about 10 acres. And so the honeybee hives came in, which is great for the beekeeper because he gets to diversify the types of honey. And Jacalyn, do you know why I say they get to diversify the type of honey?
Is this a relationship to the allergies?
No, it's a location of what plants that bee has access to. So on the property where the museum was, which was about 10 acres, it was a whole different part of town than where he had his other bees, which were in like San Francisco, or was in Oakland, or it was here. Every area has native plants to their state. Mm-hmm. And then you have the native plants to the environment. So if we were closer to the beach, which California has one whole side, it's closer to the beach, you're going to get a different type of bee that will do those types of plants. You'll get the black one, which is a bumble, or you'll get a honeybee, which is this. And the honey you're going to get when you buy raw, and it'll say raw. That means they don't spin out the pollen, which if you have allergies, you want raw, because you can take a little teaspoon and then have only a few sneezes, but you do that for 3 or 4 months. And guess what? The body goes, oh, I've seen this. I'm over that allergy thing. I'm done. You can do that with so many allergies. But with my hay fever, I did that. I'd have a teaspoon, a little spoon of honey every day. I don't take allergy tablets, and I haven't in over 15 years because I was diligent to do that. And then I was working with the kids at the hives. So if our bees were close to the lavender field on 10 acres, you can do that. Then the honey tasted different than if they were just over by the pine trees, which don't have many flowering blooms, so they'd have to go a little farther afield. Make sure that when you want to work on your own allergies, if you decide to do the honey route, get local, harvested, unspun. You need the pollen. You need the pollen. And if it makes you sick, of course, make sure a little thimbleful to just start. And as your body acclimates, if you need to, talk to your doctor. But a beekeeper is going to be, the right beekeeper is going to be your ally in helping you. And so I did that with my kids as they were growing up, and we just ate all this honey, and all of us are allergy free at this point. So it's really important that everybody think about doing things like this. Look to nature's source. Look to what you can do organically, not using Roundup, not using lethal chemicals, because it's not just killing the plants. It's also going to kill the native animals, and it's going to kill bugs you don't want it to kill, and it could be really, really toxic to you. So remember that.
I do have a question about that. So if you're not spraying chemicals, which we know how bad that is, but you have weeds and you don't feel like getting down and literally breaking your back, pulling them out, what are some other options?
Well, to eliminate the breaking the back is to get a stool to sit on. And they make weeding stools. They have little wheels on them and everything. And yeah, you're in dirt, but they make them bigger and easier to do. And what's nice on a lot of these little wheelie weed pulling things is they are the seat has sometimes a little cushion that's built in, and sometimes you can just add one. But there's a little well, so you can put your shovel and your weed hoe there, and the small tools right there with you. Also, before you start weeding, fastest way to get them out, soak the ground. Just water them, water them. And so what you're creating is to let go of all that soil. Dry is harder, especially if you're in clay soil. That's a whole nother nightmare. And or something that's going to dry a lot. Once you get that weed out, I highly recommend that's when you're going to add new soil. And what it is you're putting it with maybe rock and sand soil, and you're putting great organic matter that you're going to get with like a potting soil. But for outside, potting soil is a little bit different than garden soil. And you're going to mix that in, and guess what? Any weed that shows up, because there will for a while, the roots or something that you might not get all the seeds that you didn't see fall, they're going to need to be pulled eventually. But guess what you're doing? You're creating air pockets where it's easier the second time. It's even easier the third time. And hopefully by then, you're kind of done. And once you keep up on those weeds, it's when you wait months and months and months and months, God forbid you got sick or you went on a vacation for months, yeah, you're going to come back to a lot of weeds, because their whole mission is to survive. And you don't know if they're blowing their seeds from the trees or from your neighbor's yard or any of that type of stuff. But I promise you, it gets easier as the soil is used to being worked. It actually puts in oxygen, and you put in the better soil, and the weeds just don't thrive because you're in there all the time making sure they don't flower and they don't make babies and send off people saying, hey, there's free soil here. But it is part of gardening. If that is not possible for you physically, or you're like me and you don't have a yard, then you can always do a window garden, which means you put the pots of everything you want, peppers and tomatoes and basil or anything. If you love to cook with really great ingredients, nothing's better than natural ones. You can put those in your window, and they have stands that will hold them up. They have them that will sit on the edge. There's just a lot of creative ways now, because the garden community knows a lot of people just don't. It's so expensive to have more land than what you live on. And that's where the condos and apartments and these high rises really take off, because our population has grown exponentially over the years.
Would you say, just to summarize about the weeds, that after it rains, that's the best time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. God soaked it for you already.
And is it kind of like, not that I would know anything about this, but is it kind of like the old adage about a gray hair? You have to pull the whole thing out by the root or it's going to come back?
With weeds, it absolutely is true. Any piece of it left. And some of the roots come off really, really skinny. Some have the main root, most do, have a main root and little ones coming off. You're not always going to get all of them. Why? You got to weed every season, because they're going to come back. And you can, I don't know you, but I don't know how to get the wind not to blow by with seeds in it. Nobody's invented a filter on the wind to catch all that, because there'd be a lot of dirt and things we'd love to catch in the wind. But the reality of gardening the reality of growing your own wonderful food is you have to take care of it. It'd be the same thing as saying, Dr. Jacalyn, do you think we could get away with people just not showering for a while? We always know the shower's there. We could do it later. Yeah, you could. You won't die. The weeds might, but you won't die. And but you'll smell really bad and nobody will want to talk to you.
That's true. That's true. So when we're talking about coexistence, we are making an exception when it comes to weeds. They're not in the let them grow.
Yeah, unless you want to eat them. I mean, there are some you can. I'm not an expert there, but I know there's a lot of dandelion lovers, and they love the little flower and they love the little weed. I grew up with a lot of dandelions that I had to pull. I just couldn't go to eat the dandelion part. I just never tried. I figured there were other foods I could eat first. So what I hope everybody gets the support of saying there are shortcuts, there are wonderful ways that you can bring healthy food into your life. And the reason why I talk so much, not about just gardening, it's our topic and it is sustainable, but so many people are afraid of going to a Whole Foods or a organic food because organic food typically I'm hoping it's still had and growing, a reputation of being 3 times the price. That's what I heard, I want to say 10 years ago. Oh my gosh, how do you afford all that? How do you afford all that? Well, guess what? Even Costco, in their big box, buy 12,000 diapers at a time shopping luxury, even they have organic food. And it comes in, yes, broccoli or asparagus or whatever they're doing. And they've got free range chicken, carcasses that you can buy and take home that's already cooked. Even the big chains have seen the value in the way we shop. And if we keep shopping this way, guess what? They'll keep meeting us in those trends. When it makes money, even the big corporations join it. And that's the great part, is you can really try this. Some people say, oh, I don't taste a difference. Well, I don't think you will. I personally have never tasted a difference between an organic and a non-organic. But what I know is that at least here they have to list all the chemicals that this plant was used with, or it says it's organic. And if you don't know what organic means, there's a boatload of rules depending on your state. You can look that up on what constitutes organic. And it really matters. It's going to water, it's going to have sun, but you can't use anything like Roundup. You can't use any artificial fertilizer. If they have a horse or a goat or a cow, they can make their own manure. And manure isn't taken from, okay, the animal pooped and then we put it in the garden. No, that'll burn the plants. It's too high. It's too high, and its minerals is too high, and its energy. That's why manure sits in a big pile and cooks. It literally does. They turn it over. They can add straw. They can add other ingredients, that are like green leaves. You just trimmed your tree or something like that, and they can put that in the pile. And that becomes this wonderful soil. It does not smell. It has a fabulous, really easy consistency when it is cured, but that takes time. So the lucky part is we live in a day and a time where you can just go down to the hardware store or garden store and buy a bag. Somebody already did it for you. I don't know about you. I don't have any horses or goats or anything that I have. I can make my own pile. I don't think the condos where I live, they'd want me. I don't know where you put it in my, no, because what you need is sunlight. So I couldn't put it in the garage. That wouldn't work.
It's interesting when you read some of these stories and they had a pet snake and it disappeared, and then it's like enormous and it's somehow in the wall, right? And it's been living there, right. Where somebody brings home like a tiny little, they think it's so cute, a little alligator, and it's grown. It's like it's like, come on, I don't get it. There's coexistence, but that's not really what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's not knowing, and it, I'm sure the pet owners of the store have to say, you know, this is going to get 12 feet.
Right.
Right. And what I would love to see them do is get, do you remember the wooden rulers, we'd have?
Yes,
for
we have one.
People and lines on their walls. I wish they'd get out a ruler and say, this is 12 feet. This is 16, 18, 20 feet. This is how big it's going to get. And about this big, give them the reality. I don't know. I've never bought a tropical animal from a pet store. I don't know what the laws and the rules are currently, but I can't imagine they wouldn't tell them, hey, do you know how big this is going to get? It could eat your cat for lunch.
Yeah, and
not dinner.
Destroy your home as well.
Well, yeah, because if they decide to, hang out in that nice dark place, who wouldn't? Let's go hang out in the walls. And
Right.
I've heard the most amazing stories, 20 years ago, but it was hilarious going, we lost the snake. And I said, you mean the python? And they went, yeah, we don't know where he went. I said, I'd start looking in the walls. And they're like, are you kidding? Nope. It just takes a hole that they feel they're small enough to get in. Let's say you're having an electrician in and they pull the socket equipment out to change it or whatever, and there's that glorious hole. I've heard all kinds of stories about where did the snake go? They haven't smelled anything, so they're very ingenuitive of living, of getting their resources they need. So be careful if you have a small cat or dog. It might go missing also.
How long can they live without food?
Depends on when if you base it on that they ate before they got in the wall, like that day, they ate, they got in the wall. It could be 30 to 60 days, depending on their health. And I actually saw an article of somebody I followed, and this was years ago, and they were sure the snake was dead by now, and they found it almost 90 days later. They could never figure out what it was eating. But it was thin. It was thin, but it wasn't dead. So somebody was eating something. I don't think insulation is healthy. It has glass in it, right? Still. Well, there's a million funny stories everybody's got to have. I mean, that would be great.
I don't want that funny story. Maybe
exactly.
So I think one thing I'd love to just end with today is that you have all of this expertise and you provide education and you really want people to reach out. And that's what I'm encouraging people all the time. Like, we have a lot of people watching. What are you doing? Reach out, connect. That's why we're here, right?
Right. And my page, Facebook specifically and LinkedIn are the only two pages I'm on. I didn't feel like, especially with Dr. Jacalyn's channel, you are going to find, you hear me first person here. And you can, how I talk and what I'm talking about. I try to keep it light, but with lots of details so you can figure out how to care for your pet, your animal, in your situation. And you don't have to call me every 6 days and say, oh, that didn't work. And that, I want to see as much coexistence as possible. What I find is that we don't know what we don't know. So for me, I'm only on two. I'm on Dr. Jacalyn Show, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. That's it. And what I share is funny and wonderful, loving, fun animal stuff and education and why we do what we should do, why spay and neutering is so vital. So many animals. And I saw our local shelter the other day saying they were going to put down another 50 cats because they simply cannot feed that many that are not finding homes. And it starts with you and I. My 3 cats are all rescued. We rescued them from totally different situations. Never planned on having 3, but that's where we're at. And they're all spayed and neutered. They're all indoors full time. And you need to find out what you can do. If it's volunteering in the shelter because you can't have a pet, or let's say you're allergic and you'd like to work on that, ask the shelters if you could come in a couple of times and walk around and be exposed to what you're allergic to safely. And that's how I got my allergies under control, is I ate local honey with pollen in it. And now I don't have to carry around except for 2 or 3 Kleenexes because my nose runs like anybody else's. And I don't want to go sniveling anywhere. Expose yourself if you really have a dire allergic issue, please check with your doctor. Always, always, always. But I encourage you, one way to get past allergies, animal, plant, or your neighbor, whichever, is to be exposed in small doses so your body can acclimate to whatever is bothering you in that plant or in that dog or cat. I know people who adopt animals without fur. That's not my preference because that's not natural to that pet. You can breed it out, you can genetically make them grow without fur, but that means that you need to put a sweater on that animal all the time. You need to put sunscreen on that animal all the time. That's not the way that animals should be put together. So instead of us expecting the animals to change, wildlife or domestic, let's start with us changing. Let's start with us doing better. I'm going to leave everybody with that.
Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We're going to close out with a new sponsorship, hot off the press. Woo!
Yay!
Let me share my screen. This is Ella Holly and music video. So let's take a look right now. And here we go. Oops, let's start from the very beginning.
If I look into your heart, are you looking back at me? Am I everything you want, baby? If my heart was in your hands, would it be for you and me? Would you wanna keep it close, baby? Right on time, find the right guy, the one I dream to be. Give it all that you can, stumble and fall. Love will set me free. Baby, 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 don't you know you drive me crazy? I love the things that we do. Baby, 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 if you say that I'm your lady, 'cause I can't stop thinking of you. If you told me to my face, you would lie right through your teeth. Would anybody know this is meant for me? I'm not the one to cry or throw my heart away. Can you show me all your love? 'Cause I'm tired of these games. Right on time, find the right guy, the one I dream to be. Give it all that you can, stumble and fall. Love will set me free. Baby, 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 don't you know you drive me crazy? I love the things that we do. Baby, 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 if you say that I'm your lady, 'cause I can't stop thinking of you. Now play the game, make it up, fake it up. It's what we do. We play the game, shake it up, wake it up. I'm thinking of you. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Reach for the stars. Baby, 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 don't you know you drive me crazy? I love the things that we do. Baby, 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 if you say that I'm your lady, 'cause I can't stop thinking of you. Baby, baby, baby. Baby, baby, baby.
Wow.
Wonderful.
That was Ella Holly, Things That We Do. She's joining us from London, directed by Alexander Bailey. Dancers are Grace Brooks and Charlotte Hurry.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Amina, final words for the day as we leave and head into the holiday weekend. What would you like to share?
Love comes with a two-way street. That means no matter what, who, or how you love a person, an aunt, uncle, a dog, a cat, whatever it is, please respect them, that they also have the right to live and be comfortable in the life they're having. And that's what we need to keep in mind. You might like the air conditioner at 62, but your mate, your pets, your husband, wife might not. And it's okay to compromise. That's part of loving and being there for somebody or something else.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. And what I'll share is that life is very precious. What's there 1 minute might not be the next.
Right.
So we have to, I feel, live our lives with grace and be appreciative and just so thankful for what it is that we do have. And when we lose something, just remember all that person or that experience brought to our life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So coexistence and sustainability. We'll be back next Friday. Happy Labor Day weekend, everyone. And wherever you are across the world, we just wish you all the best. Stay safe and remember to love thy neighbor as you would love yourself. Bye for now.
Freddie.
Bye.